Baby bulls worldwide are right now clenching their cheeks in anticipation of either a continued massive bust to infinity and beyond that will confirm the beginning stages of the bull market to end all bull markets, or a massive bone-shattering drop all the way down to here. As Bitcoin was able to obtain a midday bust yesterday to get back above 35,000 US dollars, people are now wondering, is it time for a baby dump? Is it time for a retest of 30,000 US dollars? And more importantly, is something absolutely bananas going to be happening on these charts? And I'm absolutely going to be jumping into these. One of the first things that I want to highlight, though, is that this chart right here, Bitcoin Mindset highlighted on Twitter, it's the very first cycle where Bitcoin supply is being ripped off exchanges at a frantic pace. Do you know what this means, is what he asks. This yellow line right here is the exchange balance of Bitcoin, all exchanges. And this black line is the price of Bitcoin. Now, if you look on this chart, there are very clearly times where the price has gone down while exchange balances have gone up, and vice versa. And you see this yellow line pretty much since the beginning of 2020 has just been plummeting. People have been ripping their Bitcoin off of exchanges. And that's exactly what this yellow line is since 2020 is showing to us. Quite drastically, actually. Basically, the entirety of 2023, we've seen Bitcoin get completely ripped off. But from 2017 to 2020, exchange balances were skyrocketing. And that trend has completely shifted. And what that truly means, in my opinion, there's a million things you could probably take away from that. But to simplify it as much as you can, in my opinion, I think this is more just people educating themselves on self-custody, but more importantly, preparing for the bull market. And in my opinion, the bull market to end all bull markets. Absolutely massive bull market. So with that being said, let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance, which last week, the past 2 weeks, we've seen some decent red going from about 54% dominance to about 52% where we currently sit right now, about 52.5% Bitcoin dominance. And we have seen altcoins do really well across the board over the past 2 weeks. In fact, every day, another like blue chip or top altcoin is actually up. It seems like. Today, Matic, Polygon is up at about 80 cents. It's up about 7% right now. Cardano up about 1%. We see Chainlink actually also up 7%. That's interesting to see. A trend I think is going to continue. If you really zoom out, I've been saying this for a long time, if you really zoom out, this trend is going one direction. And if we look at where we are in this cycle, I think that we're about to see continued decline. This is in my opinion, the very beginning of this trend for the next at least couple of months as we head into 2024, specifically as we get to the halving. I think there will be a very quick pump up in Bitcoin dominance, but I think it's actually honestly months away. So I think that kind of tells you where my head is with that in terms of altcoins and in terms of Bitcoin. Now, on Bitcoin's daily chart also, we actually just got on the MACD, a very big cross and our first shift into red on the MACD momentum since October 16th. So almost a month. So if we do see a pullback here, that's absolutely not surprising. I think, as I've been saying over and over, we're going to have a retest of 30K. I keep repeating on YouTube and Twitter, I think we'll probably even see sub 30K prices again in the next couple of weeks. I think it'll be quick. I don't think it's going to stay there, but I think like a retest with one of those giant wicks and those fast crash candles that takes us below that, and then the bears get really confident again. They put in very big short positions, and then they get completely creamed, just filled to the brim with their own. However, Bitcoin's weekly chart actually paints a little bit of a different picture. In fact, the biggest golden cross in the history of mankind is currently loading, and by my estimations is only 1 to 3 weeks away, depending on where Bitcoin, how high it goes, if it stays where it's at, or if it has a dump. This cross is the 50 going back above the 200 week for the first time ever, because we've never had them cross below each other in history. So when we get this golden cross, this mega golden cross back above these levels, it'll be the first time that it's ever gone into that bullish cross, because back in the early January or early February 2023 was the first time we ever got that bearish of a cross. So significant. Also, the MACD on the weekly chart is not necessarily slowing down. In fact, it looks like it has plenty of room still. And on some of these longer term charts as well, Bitcoin's momentum is fine. In fact, on the 15-day chart, we even just ticked up again on the MACD, whereas we were falling and the momentum really looked like it wanted to cross bearish there for a while until we most recently had that bust above 30K. And you can see that as well on the 30-day chart, same thing. In fact, momentum looks like it really wants to ramp up. So if anything, if we do get a pullback, which I think there will be one at some point, I think it's going to be small. I think it's going to be fast. I think it's going to be short-lived. I think it's going to be insignificant. If you even zoom out on a monthly chart, I think it will be insignificant. But I think the possibility of a 30K backtest grows the longer that Bitcoin sits around some of these sideways levels, like 34, 35K. And really, why am I saying that? Well, if you look, this is a weekly chart. Let's take a look at what's happened in 2023. Pump, sideways, mini dump, mega pump right after, like what I'm saying right now. Sideways, a little bit of a trending downwards, then a little pump, same thing, sideways, dump. And then this one was the longest where we kind of just consolidated slowly up before this bust. So ultimately, if you're going to be honest with yourself, over the last year, before every big pump, we have basically seen dumps first. It's not unusual. And at this point, if that's like a concept that scares you or you don't understand, I mean, it's been showing us that same thing for the past 11 months. So getting dumps before pumps is totally normal, and it's not bearish. So when people try and paint that as like a very bearish thing, it's like, really, what reality are they living in? In the stock market as well, very interesting spot. So as we've been talking about, the very last 2 days of October, we saw the stock market, the SPX, bounce at such a critical level, the point of control for the SPX. In fact, right around 41.30, but basically holding 41 was huge. It needed to hold 4,100 on the SPX. And it did. And we've seen the biggest bounce since then that we have seen in well over a year. The strongest rally we've seen in the SPX in quite a long time. If we zoom out, you kind of see how drastic this bounce has been. Now, it's running into if we look just, horizontally here, it's running into a relatively small level of resistance around 4,400. Much bigger is going to be around that $4,500 to $4,600 range. But ultimately, the stock market, in my opinion, is set up to actually have a couple of good months minimum, in my opinion, especially if the Fed is done raising rates, which seems more likely than anything. And with that as well, the DXY has been showing weakness, lower highs over the past month, and lower highs and lower lows as well. Just more bearish structure after what was clearly 3 months of insanely bullish structure, 3 months of only up, basically parabolic. So if the DXY runs out of steam, if the SPX starts a longer term uptrend, historically that would be really good for Bitcoin. But you have to keep in mind, over the past month, we've seen Bitcoin performing very well despite those two things not being on its side. And we've seen altcoins really start to signal some strength back into them. And I think it's really important to just paint you a realistic picture of where we are. For the past year, everyone's been calling every pump kind of phony, right? Or not everyone, but a lot of people have just been saying each pump is a bull trap. Now we're finally starting to see that narrative for most people change, in the fact they're starting to see this structure play out exactly like every bear to bull market scenario. And where we are right now, I like this chart the best because we've just breached above this level right here that we were unable to break for a long time. And it was pretty big support for a long time. Here we are. Do you think it's more likely we're just going to bust right up here and go to 40K? Or could we have a back test? Either way, I think that in my opinion, I think we're going to see both of those things happen. Which one first? Maybe go up to 40K and then have a pullback to 30K, or maybe a 30K pullback and then up to 40. Is it possible we don't go to 30K at all? Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely possible. I'm not going to be complaining, right? I'm long on these markets. I have like my entire net worth invested in crypto, and I'm very bullish on the technology. I'm very bullish on the gains. I just think that it's part of constructive price action to have back tests. One of the biggest examples is literally this. We called this out as a falling wedge before it started breaking out at the beginning of 2023. But ultimately, here we had a nice little break from, getting up to 25,000 for the very first time since August of 2022. And then we had a dump all the way down to back test right at about 19,000. And then what happened? It immediately pumped back up, did a lot of sideways for a couple of months, and now we're at where we're at now. So all I'm saying is back tests are super normal, super constructive, and they're good for price. There is nobody with experience in these markets that will tell you that it's good if Bitcoin just only keeps going up and never has any correction, never has any retest of support or resistance, never retests anything. It's not good. Just like if the market just starts dumping and dumping and dumping, eventually there's bounces, right? It's hard to find a chart. I was going to say it's hard to find a chart that's down only, but actually in crypto, it's pretty common. It's all the scam coins and rug pulls that people promote. Those apparently usually all go to zero, all the scam coins. But again, absolutely nuts. And take advantage of a massive trading and deposit bonus if you're interested in signing up with my link below. It takes 30 seconds to create an account, put in an email. With Femex, you also, for a limited time, can earn up to 150,000 free USDT, depending on deposit and sign up bonuses specific to you belout. Without any further ado, that's it for me.